Which Chlorophyte weapon in Terraria is the best? So I've always seen that these weapons existed, but never thought to really use them, as there's a ton of things you can make with Chlorophyte. So starting out, I made Chlorophyte bars, a ton of them, as I had previously shimmered every Chlorophyte bar that I have into Chlorophyte ore. So I have a ton of them. And for this video, we'll be comparing all the weapons using Chlorophyte armor, as I think that fits the video the best, and we'll be using whatever class it is. So for the shot bow, we'll be using Ranger, and the rest of them melee. We won't go over the tools here, as most of them are pretty generic, as stuff like the Chlorophyte pickaxe is just a glorified Drax, as they have the exact same pickaxe power, and the Chlorophyte axe just has slightly more axe power than the Drax. So most of the tools are pretty useless, and then you don't need a really great hammer. But I did craft everything anyways, cause why not? Though we won't go over it all here. We'll start out looking at the attacks of these, which many of them are very similar. Then we'll go into damage per second testing on some target dummies, and then fight Plantera with these weapons. They all have the best reforge they can have, whether that be Unreal, or Legendary, or Godly. So I also made Chlorophyte ammo. Here is the armor. You have the Graves, the plate mail, which is a chest plate, but then the mask, which is 16% melee increase and 6% and increased melee crit chance. The Chlorophyte helmet is Ranger with 16% increased range damage and 20% chance to save ammo, which is pretty good as that works with bows and guns. And the last helmet is the Chlorophyte headgear, which is a mage. Maximum mana is increased by 80 and 17% reduced mana usage and 16% increased mage damage. Sadly, no summoner armor here, but you can get some other armor near the same stage of the game, just not using Chlorophyte. Next are the attack patterns, which a few of them have very similar attack patterns to the Spore Sack, which is an expert mode drop from Plantera. Now, as you can see, it shoots out puffs of smoke, just like the Spore Sack, which I'm guessing is supposed to be some type of mushroom spore, hence the name of the Spore Sack. That was the spear. Next, Chlorophyte Saber does basically the same thing, but less range, slightly higher attack speed. So these two are very similar. Next is the Claymore, which shoots out this projectile very similar to the Waffles Iron, which is a Get Fixed Boy only drop, and the Chlorophyte Claymore shoots slightly slower than the other two. Next is the Chlorophyte Shot Bow, which is basically just a better repeater that shoots out multiple shots, sort of like a shotgun, and here I'm using Chlorophyte arrows with it, which bounce around. Now moving into the DPS testing. The Chlorophyte Partisan is first up, which pierced some targets, which did pretty good damage compared to what I thought it would do. And as you can see, got a little over 2,000 damage per second. And now this is just the projectile, has no damage from the actual spear. We'll do single target, including the spear, in a second. Next weapon is the Chlorophyte Saber, which just is similar to the last weapon, but did less damage. Also, just so you know, this includes the damage from the Chlorophyte Armor's Leaf Crystal, as I wanted Chlorophyte Armor for this video, but I couldn't disable the Leaf Crystal without taking off at least one piece. Plus, I have no damage accessories equipped during the damage testing, it's just some movement accessories for my videos. And another thing about the Chlorophyte Saber is its cloud does not go nearly as far as the Chlorophyte Partisan. So it probably isn't as good, but we'll do a Plantera fight with all of these weapons soon, so we'll be able to compare them more realistically. And the final melee weapon is the Chlorophyte Claymore, which was the worst out of all these melee weapons, only getting around 900 to 1000 damage per second, and shooting very slowly, so this wasn't even every second, it was just every few seconds, so I would not recommend this so far out of all these weapons. Though the projectile was the slowest thing about this weapon, with the actual sword attack speed not being too bad, but nothing special. And the final weapon is the Chlorophyte Shot Bow, which does not pierce, so it's definitely going to do less damage than all of these, but it surprised me getting up to 800 to 900 damage per second. And in between these, I switched out the helmet, so it is getting range buffs rather than melee. And next will be single target for all the weapons other than the shot bow, as it doesn't pierce, so this would be the exact same as if I did single target, so it just isn't worth doing 2 DPS testing for it. Are these weapons worth using over something like a True Excalibur or True Knight's Edge, which so far are definitely not better. First is the Chlorophyte Claymore, which got up to 1000 damage depending on crits, staying around 600 to 800 damage per second, including the blade and the projectile, which is not too bad, especially considering how poor this performed against the multi-target with low piercing and low fire rate. And now the Chlorophyte Saber got even higher damage, getting around 900 damage per second, which makes sense with increased fire rate and attack rate. And finally, the Chlorophyte Partisan, which actually really surprised me on the damage, getting much lower than the others, only getting around 500 damage per second, peaking around 600, which probably makes sense as the main perk of this weapon is the piercing ability. Next is Plantera fights, which is a realistic boss to fight with these weapons after you fight the mechs and get Chlorophyte, as Plantera is the next boss, which will help really answer the question of this video: are these weapons worth it, especially against some other videos around the same stage of the game as Hollowed Repeater instead of the shot bow, or something like the True Knight's Edge or True Excalibur. And the first fight is the Chlorophyte Partisan, so I spawned in Plantera, waited for it to come on screen as this just takes way too long, and started fighting. Right away I noticed that the Spore Sack effect of the Partisan actually went through walls, so I was able to hit it through my arena for farming Plantera bulbs. And the weapon did not do awful, being able to do decent damage per second, keeping up around 500 damage per second consistently, which is about what we saw on single target as well. And speeding up the rest of the fight, one good thing about the Partisan was once it got to second phase, it was able to pierce through the arms, so it wasn't focusing on the arms rather than doing damage to the main Plantera. Next is the Chlorophyte Saber, and it did fine. I would not recommend doing this against Plantera. It was slightly faster, but that was as I was trying to get next to Plantera to hit it with the sword. But realistically, you would die this way, as it's just really hard to tank. And I did almost die in this fight. And speeding up the fight, it was more the same, just a pretty long Plantera fight. So far, I wouldn't recommend either of these weapons for fighting Plantera, especially for melee class. You could have something like the True Excalibur or True Knight's Edge. But will the Chlorophyte Claymore take that place as the best for Plantera? Spoiler alert, it didn't. It just did not do the damage it needed to do to take out Plantera in a reasonable amount of time. So I had to stay right next to Plantera, being able to hit it with the actual blade, and that just made it so I had to tank Plantera, which does a lot of contact damage. Plus was able to hit me with every attack once I was close to it. Backing off, I was able to heal up a bit, including using a super potion, but I would definitely not recommend any of these three weapons so far for the fight. I would, once again, recommend using the True Excalibur. But finally, the shot bow, which is not melee class, of course, so it's not really reasonable to use Excalibur or Knight's Edge while using range class. Personally, I would recommend the flamethrower for this fight, as it does amazing, and you can get it from the mechs as well. But there are also weapons like the Mega Shark, or if you want to, you can use something like the Daedalus Storm Bow. But there's also the Chlorophyte Shot Bow, and so far this is one of the best fights, using just Chlorophyte arrows, plus there's definitely better range armor out there for this boss fight. And so for my final rankings. Just remember, this is my opinion, and you guys go try these weapons out yourself. So in F tier, we have the Chlorophyte Claymore. It just did not do much damage, had low attack speed, it just was not great overall. And in D tier, we have the Chlorophyte Saber. Once again, it's just not as good as other weapons you can get at the same stage of the game, and really got outperformed by the Chlorophyte Partisan, which is in B tier. Spears just aren't great in Terraria, and this weapon I would not recommend once again over True Excalibur, True Terrorblade. But in S tier is the Chlorophyte shot bow, as this is a weapon I would actually recommend to beginners, especially with Chlorophyte arrows, because they bounce around, so you don't need a ton of accuracy or to be great at the game to use it. Now, I would recommend using something like the flamethrower above this for Plantera, but it's definitely a reasonable choice for Ranger class. Thanks for watching. If you want to see me compare the True Knight's Edge and True Excalibur, which I've talked about in this video, click the link on the top left. The bottom left is reviewing the flamethrower, which I would recommend for Plantera. Bottom right is maxing things out in Terraria like damage, crit chance, and attack speed. Top right's the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more.